So, hey guys, I'm here with Daryl. Daryl is my son's occupational therapist, and kind of staying true to what I promised about highlighting some of the issues surrounding autism. I thought it'd be quite nice to have actually someone who's a specialist come in and actually just give us information. So I thought today would be nice, Daryl, if we came and then we just started talking about how women can actually identify if their son needs occupational therapy. Or maybe you can explain to people, start off by explaining what occupational therapy is and what signs women can look for if their kids need it.
I'm happy to be here, and yeah, it's quite amazing, like looking back on our journey so far, like the ups and downs, like meeting you for the first time and meeting the little kids for the first time, and seeing how they've grown and like developed over time, and you being at the forefront of supporting them despite like sometimes not really understanding why we're doing certain things, but sticking with it and like having the faith that this is going to produce like a positive result. So yeah, it's something that I feel like I should comment on as we start.
I think you're right. And then the mentality, the state of mind, and believing that this is going to work is a valid point.
Yeah, because like like if you really channel all your energy into an intervention, you start to see results because you totally believe in it. So yeah, I think like getting it out there that people should be at least open-minded about certain things, and even though we don't have to understand everything, but being in a position whereby you're willing to learn and adjust and grow, I feel like that's usually the first step. So maybe starting on occupational therapy. Occupational therapy, what is it and what kind of kids need it? Occupational therapy is quite a broad profession. It covers a wide range of areas, from the mental side to the physical side, where we deal with physical injuries to your body or traumatic injuries to your brain, as well as psychosocial issues, which are the day-to-day issues that affect us as human beings. So generally, all children need occupational therapy, but there are some kids who need occupational therapy more than others, especially kids with developmental challenges, particularly autism. I specialize with autistic children, and they are some of the most amazing people. If you take some time to get to understand them, get to understand what they're going through, and finding ways of helping the children cope with the condition, as well as grow into the people they're meant to be, fulfilling their potential and realizing how much they can achieve. So
Okay, so Daryl, what signs should moms look for when it comes to their kids?
I think when you're playing with your child, which is something that I really want to emphasize, like take some time to play with your child. When you're playing with your child, you start to realize certain areas, that maybe my child doesn't normally do this, or maybe like I start to notice certain behaviors developing. I feel like that's a good sign for you to start seeking help, and you can seek help on the internet, just by researching like children's developmental milestones and seeing if your child is keeping up, or you can ask a professional whereby you just come through, ask some questions. Oh, I see this, is it normal? And we can then discuss as to like conduct assessments and start to see where your child is compared to guidelines.
Yeah.
And yeah, we can work around like seeing how your child can be age appropriate or compete with their peers, or maybe participate in activities that they are expected to at a particular age, so that they don't really
Lag or fall behind. Okay, so what would be like the red flags? Give us a rundown of red flags when we are looking for autistic kids. When my child comes to your session, what are the signs that are going to tell you immediately that this is highly likely autism?
Avoiding eye contact, that's the first thing. Like when your child doesn't look you in your eyes, they don't really communicate like verbally, they don't speak. They have repetitive behaviors, for example, like they keep rocking their head, or maybe closing their ears, or maybe screaming or throwing tantrums, as well as like just general lack in their ability to express themselves, despite you seeing that, oh, my child really does want to communicate, but they seem like they aren't able to do that. Usually those three areas show you or guide you toward the autism diagnosis.
All right, so Daryl, what would you say are really the major differences between a normal child just being a child and maybe a child that's on the spectrum having symptoms?
I think from spending time around kids, I've noticed that like there are certain boundaries where kids don't usually cross, no matter how daring they are. And especially with behavior, sometimes you see like, oh, maybe this behavior is just a child being naughty, and sometimes you can tell like, oh, maybe this behavior is now probably some form of condition. So I think like when you spend time around with your child, you'll be like, oh, maybe I think my child should be speaking by now, or maybe I think my child should be able to respond to their name, or maybe my child should be able to participate in certain activities, but they seem to be unable to do that. I think those are really like telling signs that you might need intervention, and yeah, I would be glad to help like iron out certain areas that you feel like there.
So, Daryl, I'm playing with my child. I'm realizing there's no eye contact, they're not responding to their name. And I think what you were saying earlier is their sense of regulation is less than a normal child. What would you say is the first step to take as a parent?
I think seeking professional help, where you come for like an occupational therapy assessment, or you can visit some psychological services, who will then later on maybe refer you as well back to occupational therapy, because like that's where we start to deal with the challenges that you would have encountered, or the concerns that you might have as a parent. So I think the first step is to seek professional help, where they conduct where we conduct assessments, which kind of give us conclusive insights into whether your child, or what kind of service your child needs. Then the next step is now drafting an intervention program which suits your child specifically. That involves home modifications, school modifications, school visits, like putting in place adaptations for the environment for them to be able to cope, as well as educating the caregivers, as well as the school staff, everybody who has contact with the child, into having insight.
And I think that is just a valid point, Daryl. Everybody needs to be involved in the child's development when there is autism, from auntie, from gogo, from sekuru. So how would you say, do you encourage moms to tell everyone who their child is interacting with to quickly say, my child's autistic? Or what would you say?
I think sometimes going head on in when it comes to educating people is a bit tough, because like it's kind of hard to change people's opinions. But I think working from experiential basis, when you explain that, oh, go when so and so acts this way is because of this, and like when you call him and he's not responding, maybe this is how you can try to get his attention. Or maybe at school, like it's like, oh, he doesn't really mean to disrupt class, it's just that he can't handle or regulate himself. That sort of like takes away some of the stigma, and takes away some of the negative energy that would be expressed toward a child, because people don't really understand. But once you come from a place of empathy, then you'll be in a position to be like, oh, I understand, he can't help it, this is how I can help. Maybe give them some time out, maybe give them like a cushion to lay on, or maybe give them a hug, or maybe calm them and soothe them, maybe sing for them, like give them a safe space where they feel like they belong and they feel like they are loved despite their condition. And most of the times when you do that, you just see some of the symptoms just subside. So yeah.
So I would say clearly, parents, in situations where your kids are spending time, you need to at least alert the adults around them, because that's when you get instances where kids are being labeled, right, as maybe destructive or manasangateri and all these things, but they genuinely can't regulate themselves. They almost have to be taught that all the time, correct?
Yes, it's more like helping
reinforce.
Yeah, like they have to be like, it takes a village to raise a child, like literally. You can't do that by yourself. You need other people in different areas of community to help you do that. And yeah, I think it all comes back, going full circle to what we're talking about at the start, about being open-minded enough to be like, oh, maybe this person probably knows a little bit about raising children than I do, so it's better for me to learn. How do you do that? How do you raise, well-behaved kids without spanking them? How do you maybe get your child to do certain things within the home environment? How do you I remember like growing up, our parents used to have like that telepathic eye, where when they look at you, you're messing up. So, like, do you have that? How
Exactly.
do you develop that, being open-minded enough to be like, oh, I want to learn that, I want to learn to be instilling discipline, values, and morals on my kids, but then also raising them to become the best versions of themselves they can be.
Okay, Daryl. So if you have any closing remarks, I think we covered kind of the signs to know that you need to seek help. What would your closing remarks be?
I think it's quite important for parents to identify these things early, so seek early identification. And if it so happens that your child needs these services, I feel like it's also important to start intervention early, because most of the results, like they start to show up after some time. So if you start late, it also takes some time to bring about positive results. So if you want results to really stand out, I think it's usually recommended to start therapy sessions early.
Okay, so any last remarks, Daryl?
I think just spend more time playing with the kids. Like they really enjoy the attention. They really enjoy. Kids can tell when you're distracted. So I feel like just set aside some time, maybe 30 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. To just get to fully commit to playing with your kids. No phone, no screens, nothing. Just play with your kids. And there's so many opportunities during the day. Like at breakfast, maybe when you come over for lunch, or maybe at supper time. Maybe read them a bedtime story, or during the weekends, take them on a field trip somewhere. But set aside some time to spend with your children. Get to know them, get to understand them, and that will help you understand, like if there are some changes happening in their development.
Thanks, Daryl. Thank you so much.
Welcome.